Charles Huntington, and I was born and raised in East Randolph, New York. And when the war broke out, I decided I wanted to do more for my country than I could in school. So a friend of mine and Bob Helms, we joined the Navy together and sent to Sampson. That was in December 1943, and got out in 46. When I decided to join the Navy, I figured I should help my country. I wasn't doing much in school, so I got my parents' permission and I joined the Navy. Of course, I was only 16, and they put me on the 5-inch gun, and they had me catching the shells that come out. Oh, they had the asbestos gloves. But about the second shell, I went threw my hands out over the side. They put somebody else on it a little bigger. That was my experience with the 5-inch. That's 20 millimeter, yeah. And that was anti-aircraft. What they do is the big guns catch fire off, and the plane gets in closer, than the little smaller guns take over to shoot down. We didn't get into any action, but we had to be prepared. Well, we went around to the canal, came around on San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Then he was headed over towards Hawaii, and then we went to Norfolk. Then he went to Balboa, Panama, and he arrived at Balboa. You want that? June 1944, arrived in Balboa. June 1944, underway for San Diego, California. 13th of June 1944, arrived in San Diego, California. 17th of June 1944, underway to Pearl Harbor, Oahu Island. Underway to Pearl Harbor, the territory of Hawaii. That was pulled into the harbor there, and then we went to the beach, and there was an undercurrent, and they wouldn't let the servicemen go in the water, on the undercurrent. And so, but we had a recreation place for servicemen. Went in there, and they had a swimming pool in there in the middle. And all you could wear was a jock strap. All the women come out with the top, watch the swim. And but I remember there was two different hotels. I can't remember the names of them now. But when I was over there later on, I tried to find them. They were hidden in between all the big skyscrapers. And so when we left Pearl Harbor, Hudson Creek, Florida Islands, that's where I saw that the natives were quite different from what I used to know. I always heard of beautiful South Sea Island girls, and there was these black figures. Stick fingers. They're so shiny. Their faces are so shiny. The black is a black, and they had orange hair. They dyed them. That's what make them beautiful, I guess. We were on the way to invasion of Leyte, and the fleet told us that we couldn't keep up with them. We were too slow. We'd be setting ducks. It says you better head for Manus. Can we have an escort? No, we can't give you an escort. You have to go by yourself. So we started out by ourselves, and we hadn't been out there more than a half a day, and we spotted another ship, and you have to confront them. And it was an English destroyer, and they says, do you need an escort? And we said, we sure do. So they followed us into Manus Island. Well, our ship was a repair ship, ARG-6, auxiliary repair, and they started out the small engines and things like that, and small boats and so forth. And we had electricians and motor mechs and steel fitters, ship fitters, and welders and everything like that for repairing ships. And we ended up doing bigger ships too that were damaged, and they come in and get repaired and go off. And I started out as a seaman, and I was a captain's orderly for a while, and I was on a bow hook and on the motor launch. And then towards the end, I became a barber. I cut hair on the ship. And everybody had their battle stations, and I was assigned to a 20 millimeter. Oh, the food was good on the ship. The cooks did a good job of cooking it. But we got some Australian beef that was pretty tough. But he fixed it so it tasted good, but you did a lot of chewing. And sometimes we'd be out on a working party, we'd come in late so that the other food would be gone, we'd have to eat Spam. That was a good, nice and easy, nice and tender, good flavor. I was on Captain's Orderly, and he came out and gave me a package to take to U.S. President Hayes. And I took the package over, got in the motor launch and took the package over, and I went aboard and gave the package to them. They're coming back to the States. And just to get off the ship, I got in the motor launch, we started to pull away, and all of a sudden this big explosion, the mushroom type. We couldn't see our ship. So the coxswain said, we better head for shore. So we started heading for shore, and shells started dropping in the water all along the shoreline. Whoa! We stopped the engines, just got right down the boat and waited till it was all over with. And stuff was falling all around us. And finally it quit up, and we finally could see our ship again. So we headed back towards the ship. And our sister ship, the Minoa, they lost half the crew. They got all the stuff going sideways, and everybody above the water got it. Except the captain, missed him. So he was screwed up in the captain's order. But everybody below the water level got away from it. And our ship, they got the downfall, and we lost 5 men on that ship. And the screen door that I was standing on for captain's order came back, it was full of holes. So I was lucky I went for a trip.
Yeah.
And when he got back, they're bringing in bodies and things like that or injured people. Some took the legs and arms off, and I also saw the medical group had it easy, but I discovered they didn't have it. And one of the fellows that I was fooling around with that morning, he was going to take the mail to shore, and coming back, the same thing happened to them as us. But when he got up, after it was all over with, he got hit in the head with a shell or a piece of shrapnel, and they picked him up, his brains just slipped right out into the water, bottom of the boat. And they had a hole in the boat, and they had to patch that up to get back to the ship. When I came back to the ship, where I was standing, the hole in the screens full of shrapnel had gone through, and the bulkhead in the passageway, one side of the wall was just buckled in, so the concussion just sucked it in. And we lost 5 men aboard the ship, and one got plywood into his stomach, it was shrapnel hit in his stomach, and another one had the side of his face taken off with a piece of deck plate, and there was a number of there's some others that were killed too. And then there was some shrapnel hit the magazines, the 22-pound magazines. They started smoking, and seamen ran out and grabbed them and threw them over the side, which helped save the ship. But we were lucky we only had minor damage. All the stuff that hit in the water along the shoreline was probably shells that were tone from the ammunition ship floating along. They didn't go off because they weren't set to go off. There was some of the internet I checked up, and some of the fellows said they saw a plane fly in and torpedo it, but the Navy didn't think so. They thought it was an accident, and I couldn't verify it because I didn't hear any plane, but it could have happened. Oh, when he was in Okinawa, why, we did go ashore, and we went over the grounds, and we found some rifles, Japanese rifles. We all picked up one and bring back with us. Well, of course, on the ship they made us to lock them up. But when they left the ship, boy, someone took the new ones, and I got an old one. But Okinawa, there was houses that were burnt and stuff like that. And I found a little dish that wasn't broken. I brought that home. And there was a schoolhouse where we went up onto the roof. It was all damaged, and there was 2 Japanese bodies hung on hooks up on the roof to draw fire for the Americans. And they knew where the Americans were. They shoot at them. They thought the Americans shoot these dead bodies, and they spot them out. And the bodies were dried out, just like prunes. It didn't look real. But it's funny they didn't take care of it, something like that. That's about then. Okinawa, we had the first typhoon that came through. Why, we went out at sea, and it hit us out at sea, and it 40-foot west swells, and flew up and came down. I was on 4 hours on, 8 hours off on the helmsman, and I spread my legs apart, take hold of the wheel, and you looked out this side, be all water, this be sky, and pretty soon this is water, this be sky, and the captain said, on your course, steady as you go, on your course, steady as you go, because you just get on the course, and the ways to pick a ship and set it down off to one side, and you have to turn it back quick to catch up on your compass. Then you had to stop before you get to your mark, or you go on by, and it kept you busy for 4 hours. Time went fast. Nobody was seasick. I didn't get too scared. We started to go out to sea, and someone would go to the railing first thing. But during the typhoon, I didn't see a person seasick. It must be just scared. Well, we was out for one day, I guess it was. Yeah, a little over. Then we came back. Then the second typhoon, I was stationed on a fantail watch, and I had a little folding chair sat on the fantail. It was at night, and same way, you go down these waves just like going down a roller coaster. I just thought this was kind of fun, you know. Because the ship come up and they hesitated. The fantail went like down. The water came over and knocked me over backwards, and I grabbed my chair and got over by the winch, and I grabbed my arm around the winch and hung there. And someone said, "Huntington." I said, "Yeah." "You still there?" "Yeah." "If you weren't, we sent somebody else up." You weren't supposed to say where you were or anything like that. Well, he had a little something going. I'd say, "How is Aunt Nellie?" or something like that, and that'd be the name, another letter, first letter, and I'd say something else to spell out Pacific or something like that. And so he knew about where it was, so he was looking for my ship. And he finally spotted it. Come to visit. No, my brother, he was in the Army, and he was in India, and he joined up with Lily Pons and Andre Castellanos. He played the kettle drums, and he traveled all around the servicemen and played the music, traveled around that way. And I guess about all I know about him. I had a younger brother who was in Korea. And he was that was after the war, but I didn't know too much about what happened there. We were on the way to Invasion of Leyte, and the the fleet told us that we couldn't keep up with them. We were too slow. We'd be setting ducks. It says you better head for Manus. We asked, can we have an escort? No, we can't give you an escort. You have to go by yourself. So we started out by ourselves, and we hadn't been out there more than a half a day, and we spotted another ship, and you have to confront them. And it was a English destroyer, and they says, do you need an escort? And we said, we sure do. So they followed us into Manus Island. Oh, aboard ship, I worked on the decks, chipping painting and things like that, and standing watch. And when I was captain's orderly, he had you run messages and things like that back and forth. Well, we was in Leyte when the Japanese surrendered, and we was watching the movies, and all of a sudden there's this kind of a quiet. You could hear voices go back and forth. We came around, the Japanese surrendered. Then everybody jumped up and hollered and yelled, and all the ships started sending up these flares, and the fireboats went by with the streams of water going around, shooting it up there. And it was so dark you couldn't see, or so much light you couldn't see the stars anymore. And they had to put out fire watch because the flares were landing on the decks of the ships. When the fire started. But that was a great feeling. Everybody, the Japanese surrendered. Out from Okinawa, we ended up in Japan, Kobe, Japan, and we go ashore and they go to the dances. The Gushi girls would dance with them and so forth. I met my brother over there, and he was on a USS Bellinger, which is a German ship that was captured by the Americans, and they used it for Army supply ship. So he was on that. And one day, somebody came along, a little collapsible rowboat, Japanese collapsible rowboat, came up aboard ship and wanted to ask for me. It was my brother. So I had to get my dress blues to go visit his ship. And got in there, and I didn't know about getting into that collapsible rowboat. It was pretty rough. I didn't want to get my uniform all wet, have to swim. But we made it back and had a good visit. And come back and well, at one time I was working in the barber shop, and all of a sudden there was a big bang. It shook the ship, and what is that? I went topside, and there was a little ship. There was a captain on it. They weren't too good at coming alongside. And the name of the ship was U.S. Son of a Bitch. And I was telling my brother about it, and he said, well, they had the same experience over there. In Japan, they were treated real good. One day, a couple of us went into a place that we weren't supposed to go, and it was a little fisherman village. It was on a slope down to the water, and they had little docks down the bottom where the fishing boats come in, and their sewage run in ditches, come from the houses and went down ditches down into the harbor. And so we walked down the bottom of the hill, got down there, and all these kids come gathering around us, hollering, jabbering. We better get out of here. So we took off and got back up in our own territory. Really didn't know what would happen over there. But as far as the people, they're pretty decent to us. In fact, one fellow that my brother met, he wanted to learn English. My brother wanted to learn Japanese. So they get together at his house and talk it over. Well, I went with them one time, and they sit down. They have the tables are like a coffee table, and they have little cushions around the table. Then on the corner they have a little pot with ashes in it, like coals. You warm your hands on the coals. They say if your hands are warm, you're warm. That's how they kept warm in the houses. And he gave me a picture of a cherry tree in blossom, and there was something written on the back of it, and I finally found someone that could interpret it for me. And on the back it says, "Beautiful on the outside, but hell on the inside." But I never knew what it meant. When I was on the island, I talked to a few of the Japanese people, and this one fellow was a suicide on suicide boats, and of course he didn't make a mission yet. But I asked him about it, and he says, "Oh, we didn't like the idea really, but that was the thing we were supposed to do." So that's what he did. After we got to Pearl Harbor, we had to go into dry dock, and then those of us who were going home, they shipped us out and they put us on a troop transport. It was pretty slow, but aircraft carrier took a bunch home. They left 2 days after us, and they passed us before we got to San Francisco. Coming back on the trip for dinner or meals, we had to stand up at tables hooked between poles, and you stood at the tables and ate the lunch. There's so many on mine, they had to go move along. Well, when you get ready to leave the ship, there was one fellow that went AOL when we were going overseas, and we were getting ready to leave, and he was in prison all this time. He came back to serve his time aboard ship after everybody else was going home. And then we took a troop carrier back to come back to San Diego, California, and we left 2 days later. The aircraft carrier had another load, and they came back. And 2 days later, they passed us. So we were pretty slow going. Well, this fellow, this is after the war. This fellow he had more points than I did. He was older, and he had more points than I did, so he was going home first. And he had to have somebody to take over the barbering, so he taught me how to cut hair, and I learned how to cut hair. Well, we came into San Francisco Bay. I went under the Golden Gate Bridge, and looking up, it looks like the mast is going to hit the bridge because it's up so much higher, but that opposition, it looks like it's going to hit. We all started ducking down. Got to when they went past Alcatraz and came into Florida Island, and that's where we got our discharge. Well, we took a train cross country to New York City. It was the old coal engines, and the people, the conductors, had to change their bed every day because the sheets would be black from the coal dust. You could see through the windows, and the seats. But at night they'd raise the seat up. He'd make up the bed on the bottom seat and the top bunk, and in the morning he'd have to take them all off and put clean ones on for the next night, or not until the next night, but. One night, the guys go another cards and play cards, and they said stay in your own cards at night. And so these fellows went over there, and I tried to get them to come back. Well, they were too busy playing cards. The next morning, I woke up and we were going in a different direction. They switched the cards around. That guy didn't get back on the card he's supposed to be, so I don't know where he ended up at. We got into San Francisco, and we took the subway from New York, from the Grand Central Station, under the river to the Pennsylvania Railroad. Then Timmins Radio took me back to Buffalo, and then to Jamestown, then to Randolph. At that time, the train stopped at Randolph. And I got home, and no one picked me up. Didn't know I was coming in. I didn't call him or anything. So I walked from Randolph to East Randolph with my sea bag and everything. Why didn't you call us? I thought I'd surprise you. That's it. Got back home. I was doing barber work, and my mother thought I should get into beautician work. Well, I took her advice of it, and I went to beautician work, went to beautician school. I started a small shop, but it wasn't my nick, so I gave that up. And I just cut a few hair at home and like that. Finally, I quit that because the barbers didn't like it downtown. Then I went to work at the Cattaraugus Cutlery for 3 years and 91 cents an hour. And I got a chance to go Jamestown's Steel Partitions, and I was getting one week, but I'd make 2 weeks down here in Gold Valley. But I had to go work that night. I didn't get a chance to tell them that I was quitting. So I called them that night and told them. They were pretty mad at me, but I had to do what was best for me. So I went up there. I worked there for 8 years. Then they went out of business, and I got a job with the bread company, and I worked for them for 8 years. And they went out of business. Then I got a job with the sheriff's department. I worked for them for 20 years. They didn't go out of business. I retired from the sheriff's department.